If you own a home built before the 1990s, you've probably had this exact moment. You look up at that bumpy, textured popcorn ceiling or stare at a dated plaster wall, and a very specific anxiety sets in. Is this stuff toxic? Look at this photo of mid-century suburban homes under construction. From the 1940s straight through to the 1980s, these textured ceilings and thick plaster walls were the absolute standard for new housing developments. This image shows a worker applying that heavy plaster. Builders loved these materials for very practical reasons. They were incredibly cost-effective, they easily hid imperfections in the drywall beneath them, and they offered excellent fire resistance. To get that extreme durability and fireproofing, manufacturers needed an additive, so they frequently mixed asbestos directly into the plaster compounds and the stipple before spraying it on. Because of that widespread use, millions of modern homes still contain this hidden material today. So the question is, do you need to panic and move out immediately, or do you just need a better set of facts? Let's clarify exactly what we are dealing with. Asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral. It is entirely made up of extremely fine, tightly packed microscopic fibers. Watch how these fibers behave when under stress. When the material is physically disturbed, these rough, needle-like fibers fracture off and become suspended in the air, essentially invisible to the naked eye. This warning sign spells out the grim reality of that dust. If those airborne fibers are inhaled, they can permanently lodge in the lungs, leading to severe, long-term respiratory diseases like mesothelioma and lung cancer years down the line. But here is the most crucial rule of asbestos management. It is not radioactive. It does not emit a toxic aura or poison a room simply by existing on the ceiling. The danger is entirely mechanical. The risk to your lungs only exists if the material is physically broken, scraped, or crushed. If left completely alone, those microscopic fibers stay securely trapped in the plaster. This creates a very specific conflict for older homes. You have to weigh the aesthetic desire to scrape away an ugly, dated ceiling against the literal toxic fallout of tearing into it. Directly, we all know the temptation. You watch a few home improvement videos, grab a scraper or a sledgehammer, and decide to modernize your living room over a 3-day weekend. But applying that DIY energy to unverified older materials is exactly what triggers a hazard. Sanding a wall, cutting into a pipe chase, drilling a hole for a new light fixture, or scraping stipple. Those are the specific actions that launch fibers into the air. Look closely at this macro shot of a standard popcorn ceiling. There is no reliable way to confirm asbestos by sight. A perfectly safe ceiling and a highly toxic one look identical to the naked eye. Skipping professional protocols to save a few $100s on a renovation might seem smart on a Friday night, but you are trading a short-term financial win for irreversible, long-term respiratory risks to everyone living in the house. Attacking a pre-1990 ceiling or plaster wall with power tools before getting a laboratory confirmation is the absolute worst, most dangerous path you can take. Before you swing a hammer or buy a gallon of paint remover, you have to pass through a mandatory bottleneck: professional testing. The rule for older homes is simple: guilty until proven innocent. If your house was built before 1990, you must assume every inch of plaster or popcorn ceiling contains asbestos until a lab proves otherwise. Getting that proof is straightforward. You can hire a certified abatement professional to safely take samples, or carefully use legally permitted mail-in test kits depending on your local regulations. Yes, testing requires a small upfront cost and forces a slight delay in your project timeline, but in exchange, it gives you a definitive, scientific answer. That lab result acts as a financial shield. It prevents you from accidentally contaminating your home, and it stops you from paying thousands of dollars for hazardous material removal that you might not actually need. Let's say the lab results come back positive. You have asbestos. Rather than guessing your next move, we can run your situation through a simple, logical decision tree. Look at this flowchart. Here is where you start. The very first question you have to answer is about the physical condition. Is the material damaged, crumbling, or what the industry calls friable? If you answer yes, if the ceiling is cracked, peeling, or water damaged, intervention is mandatory. you must proceed to professional abatement or encapsulation. Professional abatement comes with a steep financial cost and usually requires you to leave the house for a few days. But as you can see by these trade-offs, it permanently removes the hazard and secures your property value. Let's go back to the top and follow the no path. If the material is fully intact, the next question is, are you planning to renovate? If the answer is no, your final outcome is simply to leave it alone. This basement photo is a perfect example. The popcorn ceiling is completely undamaged, sealed, and undisturbed. This is a successful leave-it-alone scenario. The passive route guarantees physical safety and costs you exactly $0. The only trade-off is that you have to compromise on your aesthetic vision and live with the dated look. And feels counterintuitive when dealing with a known carcinogen, but for the vast majority of homeowners, the safest, smartest, and most economical choice is doing absolutely nothing at all. Knowing the logic is one thing, but applying it to your budget and timeline is another. We can break this down into specific marching orders. Take a look at this matrix. Most homeowners fall into one of these three distinct profiles: the eager renovator, the anxious owner, and the budgeter. For the eager renovators out there, if you plan to drill, scrape, or knock down a single wall, your rule is strict. You must test before touching. No exceptions. If you are an anxious owner, look at your assignment. Monitor condition. If your walls are visually solid and undamaged, your passive risk is zero. You can breathe easy. Your only ongoing responsibility is to keep an eye out for future roof leaks, water damage, or structural cracks that might compromise that sealed surface. Finally, for the budgeters. If full abatement prices are out of reach, your path is to encapsulate or cover. You can legally seal the asbestos with specific binding paints, or simply install a brand new layer of drywall directly over the old ceiling. Regardless of your bank account or your anxiety level, you have a clearly defined path forward. Success here relies on following a strict strategy, not giving in to panic. The fear of what might be hiding inside an older home's plaster is entirely valid, but that fear should never push you into making a hasty, dangerous DIY mistake. Respect the physical materials built into your house. Assume the risk is there, map out your budget, and always test before you touch. True home improvement doesn't always require a sledgehammer and a demolition day. Sometimes deciding to leave a ceiling exactly as it is the ultimate act of protecting your household.